New York has its first inhalation anthrax victim, but she's still too ill to help investigators. Good evening, I'm Melissa Cordial.
And I'm Jared Hall. Officials say the victim is struggling to stay alive, and they don't know how she contracted the disease. It's tonight's top story.
Something like 10 o'clock at night or...
The 61-year-old woman works at the Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital, and that extends worries about anthrax beyond the current focus of postal workers, the media, and government offices. But New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani says environmental samples taken from the hospital where she worked have come back negative, and he says no one else is showing signs of the disease. Giuliani says the woman worked in a supply room at the hospital. Health officials say the room had shared space with the hospital's mailroom. Inhalation anthrax is the most serious form of the illness.
Meanwhile, anthrax has infected an Indiana congressman. Mike Pence met with health officials and investigators after anthrax traces were found in his office. Pence says a letter sent to Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle's office contained 2 grams of anthrax containing billions of spores of the bacteria. Officials have decided to pump chlorine dioxide gas into the Hart Senate office building to get rid of this potentially deadly anthrax spores. No one in Pence's office has shown any symptoms of anthrax. And several congressmen are criticizing the post office for the handling of the anthrax situation, including Indiana Congressman Dan Burton. Burton agreed with several other congressmen that post office officials have not handled the crisis properly. Cases of anthrax have occurred in Florida, New York, New Jersey, and Washington, all thought to be connected to contaminated letters.
Low-flying jets have pounded the Taliban stronghold of Kandahar in another round of U.S.-led airstrikes. Meanwhile, the Pentagon says U.S. ground troops are inside Afghanistan and performing liaison work with anti-Taliban fighters. This morning, a huge explosion at the front lines created a mushroom cloud at least 1,000 feet high. U.S. planes have swept over the front lines today, but the origin of this explosion remains uncertain. And while the U.S. focuses on military efforts against Afghanistan and anthrax here in the U.S., Indiana Senator Richard Luger is concerned some of the former Soviet Union's nuclear and chemical weapons may have slipped into the wrong hands. It's been a decade since the Soviet Union collapsed, but U.S. officials say they still can't account for all the weapons. And Luger says that's even more crucial after the September 11th terrorist attacks. The senator says nearly half the Soviet nuclear warheads have been destroyed in the past 10 years. Well, religious protests continue in Pakistan, and the demonstrations have some people questioning the Pakistan president's hold on power.
President Musharraf is meeting with political leaders and still planning to travel to the U.S. next week. Many people say that's a sign that he has confidence in his position. CNN's Bill Delaney has more from Islamabad, Pakistan.
In the bazaar of Pakistani politics, governments have never been stable currency. Since 1988, 4 elected administrations brought down. 10 governments in all came and went. 2 years ago, General Pervez Musharraf took over the country. Some now wonder whether in time it will be taken back. With poverty a bitter constant for tens of millions in Pakistan. And Islamic fundamentalist protest growing amid the bombing in Afghanistan, Musharraf, at least for now, supports. And defiance in the streets may be just beginning.
Looming most immediately is a challenge to President Musharraf's authority, a call to civil disobedience, blocking roads throughout the country, starting as soon as November 7th. A call from a coalition of more than 24 religious parties known as the Pakistan and Afghanistan Defense Council.
For all of it, though, Musharraf's hold on power, many observers say, is not frail. And opposition from the religious right, not new.
Sensing that General had liberal tendencies, they opposed him from the very beginning, but they have not been able to persuade general public that General Pervez Musharraf is wrong and they are right on this particular issue of war in Afghanistan.
In the last democratic elections in Pakistan in 1996, parties backed by religious extremists won less than 5% of the vote. This week, President Musharraf scheduled bridge-building meetings with Pakistani political parties, including the country's largest, the Pakistan Muslim League. The president pledged to the head of that party democratic elections in Pakistan next year as scheduled. A willingness to let the people choose and maybe cede power, perhaps as good an indicator as any right now. of Musharraf's confidence in his power, despite the turbulence within and just over his borders. Bill Delaney, CNN, Islamabad, Pakistan.
All right, Nicholas Ferrari joins us with a look at our first forecast. Nicholas, it was a beautiful day today.
It was certainly much better than we saw last week. Great temps out there. Tonight in our first forecast, we'll see cloudy skies with a low dipping down to 48 degrees.
All right, thanks a lot, Nicholas. Well, the beginning of this week hasn't been the greatest for the stock market. Today's close marked the second day of pessimism on Wall Street. The new numbers on consumer confidence, which is at its lowest level in 7.5 years, helps send stocks lower again. At the close of the market today, the Dow tumbled 147 points to end the day at 9,121. The Nasdaq lost 32 points, closing at 1667.
So if the university were threatened, how could Ball State handle an anthrax breakout? Tomorrow's edition of the Ball State Daily News addresses that issue. Also in the Daily News, a circulating email is telling people not to go to malls for fear of terrorist attacks. They'll have details on how malls are reacting, plus an animal shelter expose. Read those stories and more in tomorrow's edition of the Ball State Daily News. And tailgating at Ball State football games is about to see a drastic change. How far have these regulations go? Details are next at NewsCenter at 9:30.
That's right, and Halloween is tomorrow, but these little ones got their trick-or-treating fill tonight here on Ball State's campus. That's coming up next on NewsCenter at 9:30.
The Tailgating Task Force held its third meeting last night discussing the future of BSU tailgating. According to SGA President Tommy Rector, the task force discussed two options for the revamp of the tailgating procedures. Either alcohol would be completely eliminated from tailgating or police presence would be increased. According to Rector, police will check cars for violations of the new rules. Other regulations include prohibiting couches, glass bottles, or large amounts of alcohol, such as kegs. Well, Muncie area kids were in for a treat tonight, not a trick at the Ball State Student Center.
That's right. News Center reporter Amy Wiegert was at a university-sponsored Halloween party, and she is live at the news desk with more. Amy, how was it out there tonight?
For kids, but more importantly, the Student Center ballroom was a safe place for little trick-or-treaters.
From Pokemon to insects to scarecrows to princesses, kids were eager and anxious, each hoping to be the first to arrive at the Halloween party in the Student Center ballroom. While waiting for the fun to begin, they crowded the lobby and showed one another their unique costumes. Once the doors were open, these excited trick-or-treaters were ready for one thing.
I'm gonna have fun.
Tonight's events were hosted by the University Program Board. Ball State students and faculty of the group have been planning this annual party for many weeks and assisted the children's activities. However, kids weren't the only ones having a good time.
Well, first of all, it's free, and the kids get to do things that kids do. It's nice kid activities, and it's fun.
The youngsters were given a wide variety of games and activities to choose from. They were spooked at a haunted house, boogied down to some scary musical chairs, and stopped for a quick pose with a giant pumpkin. Besides all the games, part of the fun was showing off costumes.
It's a gladiator costume. I'm a cowboy.
I'm a vampire.
Tonight's events gave kids a taste of more fun to come throughout the Halloween week.
Well, Jared and Melissa, I really wanted to stay and have some more fun with the kids, but one thing is for sure, some of those parents are going to have a difficult time getting their children to go to bed after all that candy they ate.
Did you get any candy there tonight?
One kid gave me one piece of candy corn.
I would have loved to have been there. Thanks. Amy Wiegert live in the Update Center tonight. It will be an eerie Halloween this year. Astronomers say this is the first time in 46 years trick-or-treaters can expect a full moon on Halloween. Some astronomers believe jack-o'-lantern carving was inspired by the full orange October moon caused by dense layers of the Earth's atmosphere. The Seven Sisters constellation, which looks like a small cluster of grapes, will also be visible tomorrow night. Mythically, the Seven Sisters grouping signals the time of the year to honor the dead. The next full moon will appear again in 2020.
That's awful interesting.
Yeah.
Will it be clear tonight for our full moon that we have? That's the big question, I guess, Nicholas.
Well, for tonight, the clouds will be rolling in, but hopefully tomorrow night when everybody's out trick-or-treating, they'll be able to see that full moon nice and clearly. So we'll have that coming up in your full forecast.
I'm excited.
Opening up tonight's page in the Weather Almanac for Tuesday, October 30th, we see we were right on for the normal today. Today's high 58 degrees. Our low dropped down to 48 degrees. Our normal low was at 39. The sun rose this morning at 7:08 and set tonight at 5:42. Looking across Indiana today, nice fall temperatures all around the state. Fort Wayne saw 51, Lafayette 61, Evansville the warm spot today at 67 degrees. Currently outside, it's cloudy. The temperature is at 54 degrees, and the winds are southeast at 7 miles per hour. In our satellite picture for today, you see these clouds that have been dominating all across the western part of the United States. And those will be moving into our direction as the week moves on. In our radar, you see the storms which drop precipitation today in Washington and Oregon, and those will be moving to the west. But look at these storms right here. Drop some precipitation today in Wisconsin, parts of Chicago, and South Bend also saw some rain. What we're watching at this hour is this stationary front that is slowly moving through the area. That is where the precipitation was today in the parts of Chicago and Indiana. Across the nation today, the lows not too bad from what we have been seeing. 30s up in Canada, 40s across most of the United States, and 50s down in the southern United States. For tonight, cloudy skies, a low of 44 degrees. Winds are southeast at 7 miles per hour. And for tomorrow morning, as you wake up and head out the door, partly cloudy skies, a high of 55 degrees. And our highs tomorrow, 60s here in Indiana, 70s to the south, and 80s down in Texas and the northern part of Mexico. Wouldn't it be great to have 80 degrees on Halloween? And for tomorrow, our trick-or-treat forecast, great day out there. For our little ghouls and goblins, they'll have a great night. And in our 3-day outlook, Thursday, a high of 70 degrees, Friday, 68, and showers, Saturday, 65 degrees.
Important weather for this weekend. My family's coming up, and they've already asked what it's going to be like, what they need to bring, and all that kind of stuff. So I said, well, I will check with Nicholas Frey tonight and see what he says. So that's good news for the weekend.
I'm excited about Thursday, 70 degrees.
You like those warm weather.
I do. Well, thanks, Nicholas.
Thanks. Well, a colder than normal winter might be heading our way. David Arnold, who's director of the Ball State University Weather Station, predicts that temperatures in Muncie will likely be 2 to 4 degrees colder than usual during November, December, and January. Arnold adds that the area will probably get the normal amount of total precipitation, but more of it will be in the form of snow rather than rain. And that's something you don't like to hear. You don't like the snow, but those sports guys don't have to worry about that right now because Michael Jordan is inside playing.
Yes, he is. He's had his first game in 3 years tonight in New York. I will have highlights on that and more basketball when NewsCenter 43 returns. After a 10-5 win this past weekend over the Connecticut Huskies, the Ball State football team finds itself still in first place. The non-conference game gave the Cardinals a break from last 2 weeks of conference opponents. Ball State will look to continue their winning ways this weekend when they host Central Michigan during family weekend here at Ball State. Ball State will look to win their 8th game in 10 meetings with Central. Ball State needs to finish the season strong to still have a chance at the Mid-American Conference Championship game. Right now, the Cardinals stand alone in first place of the West Division, being the only team without a loss. The Cardinals do have some tough games coming up in the next month as they finish the season home against Central this weekend, Kent State next weekend, then they're at Northern Illinois, and they finish the season at Western Michigan. Those final 2 games could decide the West Division title. This weekend's game is at 1 o'clock at Cardinal Stadium. This could be a huge week for the Ball State Lady Cardinals volleyball team. Not only do they put their 40-match winning streak at Worthen Arena on the line this week, but it's against the only team that has ever beat them at home, the Redhawks of Miami. The game is scheduled for tomorrow night. Another big reason this week is huge, on Friday the Cardinals will look to gain sole possession of first place in the Mid-American Conference. This could also be a record-setting week for an individual member of the team. Senior outside attacker Megan Hammonds needs only 24 kills to break the all-time records for kills in a career in the Mid-American Conference. Hammonds should break the record this weekend. She is averaging 12 kills a match.
From Connecticut, number 32, Richard Hamilton. And from the United States Marine Corps, Staff Sergeant Max Guevara.
Here's the problem. You live in New York and you have tickets to the 3rd game of the World Series, and your beloved Yankees are down 2-0. You also have tickets for the season home opener for the New York Knicks game, and you don't know which one to go to. Normally this time of the year, you would go to the Yankees game. But tonight was just not any Knicks game. Tonight was the return of one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Michael Jordan, to professional basketball for the first time in 3 years. Which do you go to? For those of you who went to the World Series, we'll have highlights in just a minute. Jordan was introduced in front of a capacity crowd at Madison Square Garden this evening. Jordan took 3 years off from basketball, retiring in 1998 to visit other business opportunities. He won 6 NBA championships with the Bulls when he retired. Jordan became part owner of the Washington Wizards last year, owning the majority of the team, and was president of basketball operations. Let's go to those highlights. First, in the first period, Jordan gets the ball, fakes out, but he misses the shot. Oh no, I'm sorry, it goes in. Jordan, his first 2 of the game. Then Jordan comes down, goes around the screen, fires up the jumper. It's 2, no 3. Then Jordan again comes off the screen, goes to the top of the free throw line, and nails the fadeaway jumper. Late in the 3rd period, the Knicks lead 57-52. Jordan has 13 points. The Indianapolis Pacers opened their 2002 campaign on the road tonight, taking on the New Jersey Nets. To the highlights we go. Isaiah Thomas in his 2nd year. Jonathan Bender drives, hits the baseline jumper over Keith Van Horn. This was his first bucket of the night. Then Greg Foster fights for the loose ball underneath the basket after a miss by Jalen Rose. He fights for the ball, passes it back out to Rose, who's at the top of the key. Rose nails the jumper. Pacers lead right now 65-67. The 3rd game of the World Series was tonight as the New York Yankees look to gain some ground after falling behind to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Let's go to Yankee Stadium for the highlights. Roger Clemens on the mound for the Yankees. He's going to pick off Craig Counsell here, who slips. Counsell's feeling really, really dumb right now. Next up, 1 on, he strikes out Gonzalez, and then Jorge Posada throws out Steve Finley, who was trying to steal second. Now, to the bottom of the 1st, 2 on, 2 out. Tino Martinez up. He sends one deep to center field, but Steve Finley is at the wall for the catch. Right now, in the top of the 3rd, Yankees are up 1-0. And that is our sports this evening.
Well, that was a nice little ceremony they had at the beginning of the Knicks game tonight.
Yes, it was. They honored a member of each of the different paramedics and police and fire departments in New York. There was a member for each starter on both teams. It was a beautiful ceremony tonight.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Nice. Thanks a lot. Well, coming up when NewsCenter at 9:30 continues, Nicholas Ferrari will be in with your wake-up weather, plus a long-distance message lands in one woman's backyard.
And these aren't just Halloween costumes, they're wedding garb. This couple ties the knot in an unusual way when we return.
Taking a final look at weather tonight, we'll see a low of 44 degrees outside, a cool night ahead. Tomorrow morning as you wake up, partly cloudy skies, a temperature of 55 degrees. For tomorrow, a high of 68 degrees, great trick-or-treating weather, And in your 3-day, warm temperatures, 70s and upper 60s.
All right, thanks, Nicholas.
Thanks a lot, Nicholas.
And a note written to a group of elementary school students and tucked inside a hot air balloon traveled through the air some 850 miles before landing.
Amanda Land shares with us the patriotic message written by the kids.
A perfect autumn day in the country, the quiet beauty of nature mixed with the ruckus of wildlife. Hillsboro is a place you expect to find bales of hay shadowed by historic red barns. But visitors from afar?
All the way from Hillsboro, Missouri.
Yes, she said Hillsboro, Missouri, a rural town not unlike Hillsboro, North Carolina. Friday, Ann Nolan found this balloon wrapped around a bush in her backyard. Attached was a note from a Missouri 5th grader which said, "God bless America."
I thought it could not be possible. Even with a little bit of wind, I could not believe that it had come this way, and it wasn't dirty, it didn't look rained on, perfect condition.
The trip from the school in Hillsboro, Missouri to the Nolans' home in Hillsboro, North Carolina is 844.1 miles by car. That's a long way for a little balloon, but it just goes to show you it's a small world after all. Turns out the balloon was one of 450 released by Grandview Elementary School students Friday. The Nolans plan to write to the student who sent it.
We'll let them know that we're thinking about America and God sending his blessings across the country.
You might even call it the little balloon that could.
All right, well, that does it for us here on NewsCenter at 9:30. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Hall.
And I'm Melissa Cordial. NewsCenter 43 is an official CNN student bureau. As we leave you tonight, a frightening twist to a couple's most romantic day.
Love, honor, shall live.